170 players are drafted in fantasy football each year. 60 of them are wide receivers, but a lot of those guys aren't going to help you out. But here are 5 wide receivers that can help you win your league. The first one is Cooper Kupp. He was wide receiver 1 last year. I mean, what are you waiting for? Go get him on your team. Okay, obviously that's a joke. Anyone could tell you to draft Cooper Kupp. Today we're going to talk about 5 guys that are drafted later in your drafts that I think are being very undervalued. And let's start with this guy, currently going in round 7, Courtland Sutton. Now, this was a 2018 second-round pick. Courtland Sutton splashed onto the scene in 2019, hauling in 72 receptions, 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns, finishing as wide receiver 19 in PPR leagues that year. That was with Joe Flacco, Drew Lock, and Brandon Allen throwing to him. In 2020, Courtland Sutton sadly tore his ACL, missed pretty much the whole year. And then 2021, he obviously returned, was on a very bad offense last season, wide receiver 44 in fantasy, quarterbacked by Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. It was his first year removed from the injury, so I don't blame him for not being too great. But this year, he gets to play with the best QB he's played for so far in his career, Russell Wilson. He also gets a new head coach, Nathaniel Hackett. Throughout the preseason, Sutton has been described as Russell Wilson's go-to receiver. That's what we like to see because it's obviously going to be Sutton and Jerry Jeudy at the top. And you look at Russell Wilson, he's made a lot of fantasy-relevant wide receivers throughout his career. Just most recently, 2019, Tyler Lockett was wide receiver 13. 2020, he had DK Metcalf as wide receiver 7, wide receiver 8, Tyler Lockett. And last year, wide receiver 13, DK Metcalf again, despite missing a couple games. Sutton currently going as wide receiver 22. Round 7, pick 65. Last year, Sutton, second in the league in average depth of target. If he's going deep, we know Russell Wilson loves to throw it deep as well, and we know he has a great completion rate going far. I really do like Courtland Sutton this year. Another year removed from his ACL injury. I think he's going to be back to that guy we saw back in 2019. Courtland Sutton, I'm all in on you. Speaking of all in, you don't want to miss this 9th round pick, Gabriel Davis, currently going as wide receiver 29 off the board in round 9. Now, no. It's not a homer pick, but yes. He did go to UCF, so maybe a smidge. But let's talk about Gabe Davis. Last year, he only saw 63 targets in 16 games, 3.9 per game, and 17 of those targets did come in the red zone. This was a Buffalo Bills team that liked what they saw out of him and wanted to throw it to him in the red zone, and that's what you love to see. You get more fantasy points scoring touchdowns than you don't. In the AFC divisional game, you might remember, 8 receptions, 201 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Why can't he just do that for 17 games? That's what all I'm asking. Obviously, that's not predictable, and I don't know if he'll ever have another 4 touchdown game in his career, but you like to see that rapport, and there's a reason a lot of people are high on Gabe Davis, but I don't think high enough. Now, look, the Bills let Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley both leave, so that's 184 targets from last season. They got to go to someone, and they don't really bring in a lot of competition. Jamison Crowder's here, Isaiah McKenzie, but those are more slot receivers than a big guy like Gabe Davis. Look, Davis appears to be wide receiver 2 on the depth chart and behind Stephon Diggs. Assuming Diggs stays healthy all year long, wide receiver 2 on a pass-friendly offense like this, count me in. But if something does happen to Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis going up even a notch higher. Now, you talk about last year. Davis was wide receiver 58 in PPR scoring. Like I said, only 63 targets. Can't do a lot with that. But you look at the 5 games that he saw 5+ targets, pretty dang good. He had 19 receptions, 236 yards, and he had a touchdown in 4 of those 5 games, averaging 14.52 fantasy points per game over those 5-game stretch. 5+ targets a game, not asking for a whole lot. Hopefully he can see even more than that this year, but that points per game basis would be exactly what CeeDee Lamb had last year, would be roughly about wide receiver 20. Look, I think Gabe Davis is going to do much better than the wide receiver 29 he's currently being drafted as. Give me him in that 9th round. I'm all in on him. Big year, maybe double-digit touchdowns coming his way. Count me in on Gabe Davis. Now, before I get into number 3, hit that subscribe button. In August, we're donating 10 cents to St. Jude for every new subscriber we gain. It takes 2 seconds. Go do it. Let's get into number 3, Michael Pittman Jr. Pittman Jr. was wide receiver 17 in fantasy football last season, 88 receptions, almost 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns, all while playing with Carson Wentz. Now, Wentz isn't known for accuracy, and he's now a Washington Commander. And you look at his statistics, 29th in accuracy rating, 29th in play action completion percentage. And then you look at Pittman, 44th in catchable target rate. Really didn't have a lot of catchable targets, obviously. We know their teams are going to try to load the box to stop Jonathan Taylor, which is why play action is important for the QB. And he's got a new one, Matt Ryan, the longtime Falcon QB, now in Indianapolis. And you look at Ryan last year, despite having limited targets, 8th in accuracy rating, 11th in play action completion percentage, and then 3rd in deep ball completion percentage. You look at the last 4 seasons, Matt Ryan has supported top 5 fantasy wide receivers 3 times. Twice was Julio Jones, once was Calvin Ridley. I'm by no means saying Michael Pittman Jr. is a Julio Jones remake or even a Calvin Ridley talent-wise, but Pittman is still 6'4". He's fast, and he can go up and make those contested catches, and he's going to be the wide receiver one on this team, going to see the large amount of targets. And it's a team that teams are going to basically say, please pass the ball. We don't want to see Jonathan Taylor running down 30 times a game. So I would not be surprised to see Pittman finish as a wide receiver 5 or better in fantasy this year. He's going as wide receiver 14. I don't think that's high enough with the touchdown upside he might see. He's going in round 4. Give me it to him. I like it. I still think it's a little too low for him. This next guy is going to see his ADP continue to rise, and for good reason. JuJu Smith-Schuster. Now, JuJu left Pittsburgh and signed with the Chiefs. He's in a new town and is currently going as wide receiver 31 in round 9. Now, JuJu's been a fantasy rock star in the past. 2018, wide receiver 8 in PPR, 111 receptions, 1,400 yards, and 7 touchdowns. 2 years later, 2020, wide receiver 16, 96 receptions, 831 yards, and 9 touchdowns. So it seems every 2 years, JuJu has a great year. 2018, 2020 will only make sense. 2022 is a big year for him. But diving even deeper into this, you look at the depth chart. There's really no one that scares you here. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, McCall Hardman, who did get injured in the preseason, but appears to be fine. Sky Moore, he's a rookie. I mean, you got Travis Kelce, obviously, as a tight end, but teams are going to know that. They're going to put everyone on Kelce. So they're going to need some other guys to succeed. And look, it's Patrick Mahomes. You always want to target a wide receiver on a Patrick Mahomes-led team. Could JuJu be that wide receiver one that this team desperately needs to kind of take attention away from Travis Kelce? I definitely think so. JuJu, also only 25 years old. He entered the league very young, and he's on a 1-year deal. This is a prove-it deal for him. He's trying to sign a big extension in next summer's offseason. Basically, his whole deal this year is incentive-based. So he's got to go out there, show up, prove it, and I love the talent here, love the QB, and I love the targets that have opened up with 159 leaving thanks to Tyreek Hill now being in Miami. I think JuJu's actually set up for a stellar year. I'm all in on JuJu Smith-Schuster this year. Wide receiver 29, a 9th round pick. Consider it done. My 5th and final guy, you have to go to LA. The reigning Super Bowl champs, Allen Robinson II, currently going as wide receiver 33, a couple picks after JuJu in round 9. Now Robinson finds himself on a new team, replacing the departure of Robert Woods, who's now in Tennessee. You look at Woods in 2020, I mean, he's basically the role that we'll see Robinson kind of filling into. Woods, 2020, wide receiver 14, 2019, wide receiver 14, 2018, wide receiver 11, last year, through week 9, wide receiver 12. You look at Robert Woods, he basically was a wide receiver, 10 to 15 or so every single year he was in the Rams gear. And sure, you got a lot of Kupp. Kupp's going to get a large target share, but you got no teams are going to put a lot more guys on Kupp. We'll still have a very good year. I mean, it's Cooper Kupp, but they're going to key in on him, and Allen Robinson should have the most man coverage he's probably ever seen in his NFL career, and they signed him to a big deal. 3 years, $45 million. You don't give a guy $15 million a year to just go sit on the bench and not do anything. He wasn't cheap. They're going to need him to pan out, and Robinson now gets to play with the best QB of his career. Last year was disappointing for Robinson. I mean, he was terrible. He had inconsistent QB play. He was injured. I mean, look, it's no surprise they didn't do well in fantasy. He was more or less one of the bigger busts last year. But prior to that, 2019, wide receiver 8, 2020, wide receiver 9. The fact that he's going behind guys like Hunter Renfrow in fantasy drafts is an absolute, I don't even know what's going on with people out there. Take Allen Robinson, wide receiver 33. Absolutely, he's a steal. It could be the steal of the draft. Could wind up being a wide receiver 2 in a large majority of leagues. Get Allen Robinson on your team if you can. Now, those are the 5 receivers that I think can win you your league. Check out these 2 fantasy football videos. 7 players you want to avoid, 10 rookies to keep your eye out on. A lot more fantasy content coming your guys' way. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I'm Austin. See you guys in the next one. Peace.